What is good, everyone? Welcome back to Cleveland Sports Unfiltered. So, throughout the entire offseason and throughout everything that's happened to the Browns, as far as player acquisition and stuff and coaching changes, we've always, the conversation is always, and obviously rightfully so, revolved around the quarterback battle and who's going to win the quarterback battle, who's going to be the starting quarterback, who should be the starting quarterback, who shouldn't be the starting quarterback. But there is one person that gets left out of most of the conversations of who is most important to the offense. And obviously, every time you ask somebody who's important to the offense, is obviously quarterback first, whoever is the quarterback that they like, the receivers, offensive line, but you rarely hear about how important Quinshon Judkins is to the offense. Like it's something I never really hear too many people talking about. Is how important he is, because I think he is gonna be the X factor, but solely because I think, as much as everybody thinks we're gonna be this pass heavy team, obviously everybody thinks that because we've gotten two new receivers, and now we got Jerry Judy, Isaiah Bond, Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion, and Harold Fanning. You got what we surmise is five legitimate pass catchers. But me personally, and I made a video on this, I do think that the Browns are in, if you looked at their moves early, obviously is to strengthen the offensive line, but I do think the Browns are going to be more of a run team, run first team, instead of this pass happy team. Now, obviously, most not most certain games will call for the game to get pass happy. Uh, but if you're truly trying to build your identity, like the and I know most people hate this team, and I hate when people use this team, but I'm just going to use this team for a reference. Guys, bear with me. But like the Steelers, yeah, I know. I use the Squealers. But like the Squealers, they're gonna under Mike Tomlin, that team was always a smash mouth, run the ball first, and we're not gonna let you dictate the way we play the game for the most part. Obviously, they were always successful in that approach, but for the most part, that was their approach, and they stuck to it no matter, for the most part, how much they were down in most games. They were always sticking to their game plan, and we got certain amount of runs, certain amount of pass plays, and we're not gonna get overly overly enticed with doing one thing just because we're trailing. So we're just going to stick to who we are and stick to our motto. And that is what I think the Cleveland Browns are going to be. We're going to be a run first, smash mouth team. And for the most part, I don't think Todd, and I hope this is true for when we get in the playoffs, but it has proven many a times to be untrue. Now, also, it could be attributed to their head coach, but obviously, if you all haven't seen him in Baltimore and seen Baltimore in playoff games, would know that team reverts and goes away from what got them to the dance. And I think that was always the downfall of the Ravens in every playoff exit. Is you would go in, you would have a top five rushing game. Obviously, you got Lamar Jackson, the most dynamic quarterback in NFL history, in my opinion. The best two way, not the best two way, the best dual threat quarterback, um, to me, the game has ever seen, or at least I have ever seen in my with my own two eyes. And yes, that even involves Cam Newton, because I do think he's a better thrower of the football, more accurate thrower than Cam Newton was. And we all know how phenomenal Cam Newton was. But back to we Baltimore will always go in top five. Maybe, and there was a few years they had the number one rushing rank offense. No, I don't think that was under Todd, but obviously, Todd went in with strong run games, and then they would just get this weird obsession with having to prove Lamar is a pocket passer, and let the other team dictate to them what they're going to do to them, and how the Baltimore Ravens are going to play that game. And that's what I hope Todd Monken doesn't do with the Browns. Is we Quinshon is one of the main components of getting us to, if we make the playoffs, and let's say, because I got me personally, I think he can have like a 1,200-yard season. If he does have a 1,200-yard season, obviously that involves a lot of carries, and that's a lot of rush, and hopefully he gets a lot of rushing touchdowns. And if he do, I do think that the Cleveland Browns will win more games than we lose, doing ball control, because obviously, and I know some people are going to get upset with this, but obviously the quarterback position isn't the greatest, or it won't be competing with the top five quarterbacks. But I do think that Quinshon in that running game can give the quarterback room and the quarterback position to at least play. If it's just my personal opinion, it gives Shador the floor to be at least, or to try to reach top 15 status quarterback. Now, obviously that's a tall task to ask for a second year guy, but I have high expectations. I have high praise, and I have high confidence in him, and I think he can do it. So it'll give him a high ceiling to become a top 15 quarterback. And if we have a prolific run game, I do think that Todd probably, and you would hope Todd has learned from his mistakes in Baltimore, and lean on more of what gets him to the dance, and that's that strong, and that would be that strong run game. And I do think Quinshon can be a top 10 to 12 back. I do think he can be a great back. And Quinshon had a phenomenal season. And I hear this a lot uh over a lot of shows I watch, that Quinshon didn't have a good season. And I asked, like, what makes you say that? Now I know, you look at his analytics, but analytics doesn't tell everything. Um Obviously we all know that Quinshon didn't have a training camp, and he signed a week before the season started, and I think he played game 1, and from on until he got hurt and broke his was his kneecap or dislocated his fibula or something, to where he went out for the rest of the season, which was like a few games. But he almost had 1,000 yards off of no training camp, uh barely any practice reps, anything like that, and he still almost cracked 1,000 yards. So I was confused on, and then not even just that. If you also think about it, it was a few games where there was like some 50, there was like some 30 to 40-yard runs called back because of terrible offensive line play. He had a terrible offensive line. He kept getting hit behind the backfield, but before he can make his first move, because the offensive line was so bad, and yet he still produced almost 1,000 yards. So I laugh every time I hear somebody say Quinshon didn't have a great season. Uh, if you don't have an offensive line if you have an offensive line that's worse than run blocking, and if you don't have any um training camp, and you just getting thrown into the fire, and you still almost crack 1,000 yards, how is that not a great season? But Quinshon is definitely going to be the anchor to the offense. I think he's going to be the X factor of the offense. And hopefully, the Browns can have a strong run game, and that strong run game again can give the quarterback a better floor to become or get within that top 15 quarterback range to where we can compete against the other guys. But no, I do think Quinshon, is probably the most under talked about but more valuable pieces to the offense. But those are just my thoughts. You guys let me know what you think about that in the comment section down below. Uh Appreciate you guys, and we'll ask you guys to continue to hit that like and continue to smash that subscribe button. But you guys know what I'm about to tell you. I love you guys. But you don't gotta go home. But y'all gotta get the hell up out of here. And until next time, peace.